All right, week 8 of becoming a medium, and let's just say the last 2 weeks have definitely I felt like a medium. I'm not there yet in terms of seeing spirit, but actually one of the mediums that I saw last week was I felt like he was in a very similar place to me, where it was more of a lack of confidence than an actual lack of mediumship. But we'll get into it. So let's go 2 weeks back from the last video. The last 2 weeks I've seen Mark twice now. So yesterday and the week before. The everything's changed. So the build up to now was like I was on my own. I had to like break through these walls by myself. I'd been getting a lot of messages during this time about grounding myself and being connected to the earth. But Mark kind of pieced those all together. So let me start at last week. When I went to the church, Mark saw me, came up to me, went, watch this medium, and we'll talk after, similar to how he did the week before that. Because I'm pretty sure I spoke about where he channeled in front of me. Okay, so that's already happened. The medium that week, so not yesterday, but the week before, was I can't say awful, because they were definitely a medium, but they were awful in terms of that I want to be greater than. If that's where I get to, I'll be upset, kind of thing. And it's not even from an ego standpoint. Now that I realize that this world is very elastic and it's more of an illusion than anything else, like, there is no reason to stop where these people have stopped, from my point of view. So the medium was very good at connecting people. And as an example, so one of the readings this woman gave was, I can see a carpenter, this feels like a father. I can see them not only doing this for work, but as a hobby, and they're building furniture for the home. And like someone very quickly picked up on like what they were saying and knew exactly who they were talking about. So it was just evidence. And it's funny because the week before I was there going, all I want is evidence. Well, this is just evidence this woman was giving, because I was there going like, so what does this spirit say? What message do they have to give? Like, there was nothing. It felt like it stopped halfway through a reading. Like, it would be like me pulling out the cards and going, oh yeah, I can see what's going on in your mind. And they're like, so what's the answer? And I went, oh no, we're done. No, that's it. Now you have more information. Good luck. Like, that's what it felt like. So I told Mark after, and I was like, yeah, I want to be greater than that. I don't want to just stop at evidence, even though that's my first port of call. And don't get me wrong, this is definitely a valid form of mediumship, but the only person this helps are people that are skeptical about an afterlife. If people are worried about like someone dying and like not crossing over, if they then hear that this medium can feel or see them and describe them, they now believe that they've moved on, that they're in a better place. It's no longer there's nothing. So for those type of people, like, evidence is extremely important, but again, it's just not the kind of mediumship that I want. So I was speaking to Mark, and he said something that kind of shocked me. He was like, oh, about medium stuff, like about evidence stuff, I could bring you into my circle like tomorrow, and I'll be able to like open you up and get you seeing spirits and stuff straight away. Like that, like what you've seen in front of you would be nothing compared to what you could do almost immediately. And I was like, okay. And so we basically spoke for an hour, and I won't go into all the details, but a few of the things that came up, he explained, when you start seeing spirit, just be cautious of other people can also see them. So he gave me a story of when he first started being a medium, and he'd spent some time, I don't know if it was during a class, or this was like on a train, but he was sitting next to a very pretty woman. And his spirit guide, who he was watching at the time, just very bluntly went, "Would you fuck this woman?" Like those words exactly. Before he had time to reply, the woman, who was also a medium, turned around and went, "Can you tell your spirit guide to shut up?" And so this is how he learned that like multiple people can see guides and spirits, and it's once you've tapped into this space, realize that until you learn to either protect or to shield their information, you're talking on loudspeaker. So that was more of a cool story than anything else. Just a funny one. And so at the very end, like we've been there for 50 minutes in this point, and his wife was like, "Can we hurry up? Can we go?" And he was like, "Well, let me teach you about cause and effect," because he turned around to me and went, "You've asked a very important question." And what I'd asked was, I feel like I can jump in at the deep end and I will do absolutely fine, like tapping into spirit, resonating with them and getting to see them. But I keep getting this idea of you have to ground yourself first. And so the question I asked was, should I just like jump off a bridge into metaphorically and like jump in the deep end, or should I ground myself? And he went, "Right, I've got to answer this question. We can't go yet." So he told his wife to go to the car or even drive home. He'll happily walk because he needs to answer this. And he turned around to me and he went, "Let me tell you a story." He knew someone that had a very abrupt awakening. Like immediately saw spirit, immediately realized his purpose, what he wanted to do in life, like who he was meant to become. And he left everything. His family, like his loved ones, friends, just like walked out the door and never returned. And he was telling me, not from his point of view, because I don't even know if he knows what happened to him, but his auntie, who was in spirit, was very upset because she had it in her mind that he would grow the family, have children, and none of that got to happen, and the family kind of broke down behind him. And so I get that point of view, and like from that story I was like, okay, I'm going to spend the next week grounding myself. So the past week, that's all I've been doing. It was funny because then we went to the car and I heard him say, "I'll see you in a couple of months," and I was like, he wasn't meant to say that. And I actually saw him like yesterday, so he either didn't mean it, or I've just grounded myself so quickly I've skipped realities where that was like the old reality I was in even just a week ago. Well, when I say I've grounded myself, I went through everything. The first day I was like, well, let me use like my mother, my wife. These are the like most attached people the people I am attached to. Then it's like my children, then there's close family, friends, whatnot. But like mother, wife, they should be extremely strong anchors. So I tried during this meditation loving them more than everyone else. And I was like, there's a fundamental flaw here, which is if you base your grounding on love, when you unlock or see past the illusion, because I'm at the point where I very much realize that this life is an illusion. I don't see what it looks like when I remove the illusion yet, though. So what happens then when you go past the illusion and you love everything unconditionally? Well, there's no hierarchy. You can't love your mum or wife more when they're part of the illusion. So I was like, okay, scrap that. Like, I can still love them deeply, or unconditionally, but that's not what's going to anchor me here. Then I tried the idea, and I think this is probably what's going to stick with me most, but there was one other thing that I tried that really helped. It was the idea of just enjoying the passage of time. If this is my illusion, then it is my wife, it's my mum, it's my children that bring me deep joy. And therefore, it doesn't matter how far I go, I always have a reason to come back. Doesn't matter how far outside the illusion my world takes me or my reality goes, I will always come back to them. And I found that extremely grounding. But then I was watching Bashar as well, and Willa, if you know her, one of the other channels, Bashar or Daryl channels, was talking about connecting to the trees and the animals. And I ended up doing a meditation outside where I put my hand on the floor, I had my back up against a tree, and I was just meditating. And this tree laughed at me. Let me explain. So I was like, I'm gonna manifest a world that is perfect for me, and I was saying things like being completely trusting, finding life easy, allowing myself to be completely free. And freedom has we might need to touch on freedom in a bit, but I'll get to that later. What else? Like unconditional love and whatnot. These were all things that I had manifested in my life, and my life has quite literally become both the most exciting thing that has ever happened to me and the easiest state of being I have ever been in. Like, people are like, you have 2 kids now, this, that, and the other, and I'm like, yeah, but I've got more time. I created more time because I changed my belief systems. My old belief system was, I now have 2 kids, I've got no time for myself. And then the moment I changed that, like, the world made space. And it's not that I'm doing less. I'd say I'm cleaning up more, I'm spending more time with the kids, but I've now managed to get them into a routine at night, and like so just getting them to sleep at a good hour, like 8 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, because they're not fighting us anymore, has just given me 2 hours, which is insane. But so I was telling the tree all of this, and he was like, so if you completely control your world, are you a medium yet? And like there's obviously a belief system that's still stopping me from seeing spirit, but I basically said no. And so the tree laughed at me and went, yeah, but you're talking to a tree. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I am a medium too. And I feel like the two were, I thought because one was skill based and one was luck based, like I'm getting lucky, I'm tapping into miracles, having an easier life. That's not skill based. But because mediumship is skill based, or I deemed it impossible in the past, like this is something that takes more time, and I realized that that's just part of my old belief system that I'm now like tearing down. And this is why I think I've sped up the process of, I probably shouldn't have seen Mark for another month or 2, and then lo and behold, I see him yesterday at the church. And just before I talk about yesterday, there was one other form of grounding, which was resonance. And instead of focusing on my family and what's anchoring me, realize why I shouldn't let go of this reality too quickly. And it's the idea of a singer can sing at a pitch that as a crystal glass tries to raise their vibration to the singer, it shatters. And the idea being, if I raise my frequency too quickly, it will literally seem like either I have a heart attack, or my body quite literally shatters, or my body carries on in this reality doing its thing in this dimension, but I am no longer part of it because I have quite literally risen out of this universe or reality to like a higher dimension. And so it's the idea of shattering your glass. So I found that very grounding as well, and thought that would be quite, not out of fear, because I feel like it's not the death of me, but it's, if my reality did shatter, then I would be in a higher place. So I'm not scared of it if it does happen to me. But just to accept, or if there was a fear, to immediately overcome it, that my reality could change in just a blip once I start seeing spirits and taking on that kind of energy. Now, then I saw Mark yesterday. I didn't get to say anything beforehand, but the medium, he was pretty good. But it was funny because the medium yesterday, like, I felt he was very good. His readings were very good, but he had an ego problem. And it wasn't, like, not a bad one. It was the first thing he said was, I don't see spirit. I just feel them and I get answers. And this man's talking like he's got the person in front of him. And I'm like, how, like, and I don't think it's humble, because it wasn't him being humble. It was genuine, like, I'm not good enough. So you could see it as someone that's humble, but, like, he needs to give himself more credit, or he needs to have more confidence. And because I was using my ring, and the other week I was trying to use my tarot to, like, predict the messages, and I'm quite good at predicting what the messages are. And so when I was trying to, like, guess the messages, his messages always kind of lined up with what I was saying, apart from when it was a confidence issue, when it was the issue he has. And he would always go on about, like, being judged by others instead of, like, taking action towards his true goal, which was, like, the reading that I was getting. Like, ignore that fluff, just get to the passion, overcome your fear. I don't really know how to explain it, but just to put it quickly, he couldn't tell someone else to face a fear that he himself couldn't face. And so for about 2 or 3 people, I think he gave, like, 9 readings, but for 2 or 3 people with a similar issue to him, I could tell he was being stifled, not by his connection. I'm sure he had the answer, but because he's unwilling to take his own advice, he can't give that advice to someone else. And then I spoke to Mark, and this was the first time his wife, like, openly spoke to me as well. And you can tell she's more the business side of things. But again, she's a medium. And she turned around and she was like, so we want your number. We're going to message you soon. We're going to invite you to a circle. I'm like, oh, hey, okay. I kind of told them what I'd been doing, like, trying to ground myself and how much progress I've made in that area. But let me just see, because I wrote some stuff down. Oh yeah, that part confused me. So they turned around and, so I was like, so what happens at the circle? And they're like, well, the first thing that usually happens is you find out who you are. And so still right now, I don't know what that means. Like, the first thing that came to my mind was, like, are they going to tell me, like, a famous archetype or person in reality, like Gandhi or, like, that kind of thing? But because in my eyes, in terms of who I am the all, I am the one. I'm just a reflection of it. So if you're seeing the true version of myself, you're seeing everything. And I know for a fact they're not going to turn around to me and be like, oh yeah, you're God. Like, that doesn't make sense in this version, in this 3-dimensional world. So I'm very excited to find out what that even means. And, like, I asked Mark about the idea of resonance and grounding, and, like, has he seen anything? And he actually has a story where he had a new woman come to his circle, and she directly asked his spirit guide, very cockily, like, overconfidently, said, can I feel your presence and see you? So the spirit guide, with full with full power on, just entered her aura and channeled through her, and like, from her point of view, she just erupted from the inside. She was absolutely fine, but in that moment, she felt great pain. And I think she said it felt like a heart attack in terms of how she felt personally. So he gave me that example of like what, but even when he told me that, because his wife as well seemed a little bit, not negative, but yeah, negative is definitely the wrong word, but they were trying to make sure that I come into this almost skeptical, or just to be prepared. And I'm like, that's not fun. I don't know if I'm being too cocky. I genuinely, like, I've fully embraced a long time ago the idea of, I understand I don't know everything. So it's not that's not the issue. But like, now they've told me the story that I can just ask the spirit guide to go full power into me, I'm sure I'll be fine. Like, it probably would be like when I had a mushroom trip many moons ago. We're talking like 6 years ago. And like, I didn't overdose. You can't really overdose on mushrooms, but I took too many and I died 1,000 times over and over again in a split second. And I realize now that it was only because I was comprehending a fourth or fifth dimensional being in a 3D state that it felt like I was dying. But all I was doing was reflecting different versions of myself, my higher self, my reality. Like, and in each moment I was a different being. And so there was no death or life. It was just all of those versions of myself were me in different moments. So I'm sure, like, by all means, let me know if I'm being cocky and I need to try to be a little bit more humble myself. But I can't help be way too excited about finally getting into the circle and tapping into the spirit world in this way. So that pretty much catches you all up. I also feel like, just on a side note, I'll talk about freedom as well, but before that, on that side note, I feel like in this lifetime I'm a squirrel. And so I've always had the god that I created, Stephen, who is a squirrel, but like, I've always resonated with him. And even to the point, I think I picked up climbing because I want to be a squirrel. That the tree that I sat underneath, I looked at it and the first thing I thought was, I'm going to climb you one day. Like, I don't know what that means, but hell yeah. And so, right, freedom is another one that I'm trying to tap into, constantly being free, allowing myself to feel as free as possible in every given moment. And I realize that for most people, that is they don't, like, they say they want freedom, they don't actually want freedom. When I want freedom, it's because I see the cage of the illusion. I can't wait to step out of it, and even if it's just branch into the idea of mediumship, which I thought was impossible, that is what I mean by freedom. Those that want the same life but want freedom, if you were given more, you'd probably find yourself doing less. That's not freedom. That's making the cage walls more comfortable. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'll leave that there. That's something that I've just been thinking about as well. So yeah, fun times. I'll update you again in the next 2 weeks. Who knows? Maybe I would have had my first circle. I'll be able to tell you who I am. But if not, just through the meditations every day, I haven't seen anything. I saw. Oh yeah. When I was talking to the tree, I saw this face, almost like it. I saw it die. Like, I saw this person. Like, they looked at me and then they very quickly turned into a skeleton. Like, they didn't get a chance to talk to me. but I saw it clear as day with my eyes shut. So I don't know what that's about as well, but I'm just letting my senses, my sixth sense, my other senses come out. This is just random boggle at this point. Anyway, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.